Welcome in, everybody. We're going to get started in a few minutes. We're just going to make sure we let everybody join and just take a few minutes to let that happen. So give us 2 minutes. All right, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the main event. I'm Farah Belizario. I am your host. I am also the Regional Director of Agent Services for LAER here in Florida. And just to give you a little backstory, the main event is actually Stacey Alcorn's idea. And just so you guys know, the main of a pride are lions within a pride that the pride views as leaders. So we thought this was going to be a really cool name for this type of event. For our first ever main event, we have invited the amazing Roberto Ferrer Jr. to join us. He's absolutely awesome. I had the pleasure of meeting him on my very first day here at LAER and hearing a little bit about his amazing story. So, Roberto, can you just tell us a little bit about your journey? I know you started real estate in March 2001. Tell us a little bit about that.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I was actually working at a printing company, a digital printing company here in Riviera Beach, and we were bought out by a forms company who had been buying up a lot of large commercial printers at that time. My boss unfortunately got fired, and I wound up taking his place. But then he got hired with the corporate office, and kind of gave me an idea that my division was going to be shut down, and pretty soon. So, in a conversation with a friend of mine, who actually was a broker for a real estate office at the time, he told me, "You do very well in real estate," which I never thought about before. And being in a situation where I possibly needed to look for a job, real estate seemed to be, with that little push, the direction I went. Not realizing that it wasn't really a job because it didn't have a salary. Uh, but yeah, that's how I kind of got pushed in that direction.
It's so funny that you mentioned that it didn't have a salary because that's such a real realization. Like that's real on the boots, kind of like boots on the ground kind of perspective. So you started in 2001, and how was it when you realized that it wasn't like regular job where you get like weekly checks and you clock in, so on and so forth?
So that was a little bit of a shock, right? Because after I went into the office every day, every week, and after about a month, it was like, I'm not getting paid here. So it was, what am I doing? Where am I heading? Leaving a career that I know, stepping into a realm that I have no idea um, what's going to happen, and learning along the way. It was a little bit of shock to get used to not having that steady paycheck.
I love that. So, in the beginning, what were some of the key moments that you can remember that you decided, okay, this is what I need to do to be successful? And what were the things that you decided, the habits and things that you decided you needed to do in the beginning to be successful?
I realized I needed to talk to people, right? In the printing industry, we had salesmen that actually went out and searched for work, and as a general manager, I just made sure that everything got done. But here, it was me that had to be the salesman and go out and find people, talk to people, let everyone know. Having a little bit of printing knowledge, also graphic design knowledge. I began to, after reading several books, market my friends, market my family with postcards, sending out postcards. Hey, this is me. Sending out informational pieces, making phone calls to friends, trying to let them know. Now we're talking in the 2000s, so the internet wasn't a big thing for us. So it was talking to people in the supermarket, where I play racquetball, where my kids, I coached youth sports for 22 years. So I sponsored all of my teams, with my
I'm
phone number
sure.
on the t-shirt. So I always played it off like, hey, if your kid's going to be late, here's my number. But also, I'm in real estate, so here's my number.
I love that. So it sounds like A, you leverage your prior knowledge from an industry that was not related to real estate at all and kind of made it work for you. And B, you recognize the fact that you needed to start kind of reaching out to people and like prospecting the people that you knew. So longevity in the industry is a significant achievement. That's kind of where you started at. What strategies or habits that you had in the beginning you still utilize today? And what are some new strategies and habits that you're employing as of late?
Um, One of the things that I still do today is that I try to reach out to anywhere between 3 and 5 people a day, whether it's past friends, past clients, family, or cold calls, which is my weakest point. I have to admit, cold calling has never been my strongest point. But I try to at least reach out to someone. Um, One of the good things when you pick up a rental property is that you get a lot of leads, right? And those leads I add to my system database and begin to market them through emails and stuff. Every morning I get up, I check my emails, and I go through and see which 5 people I can contact today. And with Facebook and social media, it kind of makes it a little bit easier. It's today what I've done is try to figure out where and how to communicate with them, because not everybody's up to a phone call or a text message.
Mhm.
Some are on Facebook, some go through Messenger. So it's finding out who likes WhatsApp, who likes this, and where they're responsive, and then making that notation so that the next time I reach out, I know what portal to use.
I love that. So what you're talking about, it sounds like our checklist, right? Things
Yeah.
that you do every single day. And that was a secret shout out to Stacey Alcorn because we love checklists here at LAER Realty. So that's awesome. In the beginning, kind of going back, how long after you kind of strategize, okay, this is the way I need to go forward, did you see success? Because I always think that's a big issue for new realtors because it feels like I'm doing all this work right this second, but I'm not getting a check. So, how long did that take to realize it?
Wow. I think it took a couple of months. And my first deal was a $25,000 condo in Crest Haven. And this woman had bounced around the office, from agent to agent. Nobody wanted to help her. They felt it just wasn't enough for her. And when it came to me, I felt like it was the perfect opportunity to get my first deal on the books. Um, so I worked pretty hard on that one with some help from a seasoned agent in the office who took a liking to me, because I showed up every day, because I was making phone calls, because I was trying. Um, that deal actually turned out to um, turn into a listing for her home. So, unbeknownst to anybody, it was a blessing in disguise.
That's pretty awesome. So, another question for you is when I was researching you from like a statistical standpoint, I noticed that you did quite a few transactions in the last 12 months. And admittedly, this year in real estate has to be one of the toughest for a lot of agents. What are some things that you think is making you so successful this year of all years when so many other agents are really struggling?
When I started in 2001, you remember, unfortunately, the attack in 9/11.
Yeah.
Um, that devastated our market. There was nothing happening, literally nothing happened. You can make phone calls and people were just not even interested, in even entertaining the fact that they would have to spend money or move anywhere with the uncertainty of where our nation was at the time. So there was a lot of dead time during that time period. Time from which I utilized to obtain certifications, take training courses through the National Associations of Realtors, or our local board was giving out a lot of classes on contracts, on marketing, uh, buyers, sellers, whatever was available. I thought might as well go out there and not only begin to increase my knowledge, but begin to expose myself to other agents, to other people. And today, uh, kind of feels almost like that same feeling back then.
Hmm.
But now there's more from me to pull from. So while I have more listings today than I've ever had before, it's all just continuing the same thing, never giving up, right? Never giving up, because that's the part that happens. We give up, and then 2 months turn into 4, then 5, then 6, then you're looking at the help wanted ads trying to find work somewhere else.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm so glad because it's such a consistent story across the board for realtors. So I'm really glad that you said that. I know that during our conversation and during some of my research, that you shared that you had some health issues during your real estate career. Can you share a little bit about that, how it impacted you and what you did to overcome the situation and stay in real estate? Because I think that's the hardest thing, right? When we are dealing with life and it pulls us away from the habits that bring us success, it can be quite challenging to get back into those habits to recreate that success. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Back in the mid 2000s, I was diagnosed with kidney disease out of the blue. And it took a while for that disease to kind of take effect. And as it started to do so, it's my function began to decline. It was also around the time of the market crash.
Okay.
So there was a slowdown in the market, as well as there was a slowdown with my body as well. Um, so not being able to do many sales, there were not a lot of sales happening. Driving around seeing a dozen real estate for sale signs in one community wasn't a very good look when you had a buyer with you back when we used to have buyers in our cars, right? Um, so as I began to get sicker, I wanted to stay. I didn't want to give up on real estate. So I found other ways to try to make money by staying in the market, such as I became a certified and background screened notary signing agent. And I signed up with several title companies and notary services to do mortgage refinancing. And I would go to people's houses and notarize their documents to sign. And at first it didn't click, but after a little bit, I realized I'm still meeting people, right? They're refinancing, which means that maybe somewhere along the line they might want to sell. So here's my card in case you need something else from me in the future. I'm also a real estate agent. I also did BPOs, broker price opinions, and REOs for several different mortgage companies, which at that time was plentiful. They gave me an opportunity to continue to learn about the market and how the market was shifting and how everything was changing. So that kind of carried me through even shortly after my kidney transplant, that kept me alive in real estate and kept me going, which kind of made it an easier comeback after I was able to start working.
That's absolutely amazing. And I think it's something that a lot of realtors don't necessarily initially consider is industries that are real estate adjacent that keep you connected to the real estate world, but that you can lean on for supplemental income. So that's really, really cool. So today, what are some key habits that you practice daily? I know you talk about calls, but like what does a Monday through Friday look like from the beginning of your day? Do you have it mapped out in a schedule or an agenda, what you do day to day?
So I'm still working on that. So don't call me out on it yet. But daily, um, yeah, I go through my emails, I go through my spam from yesterday to today to make sure I didn't miss anything. If I start something, to make sure I get back to somebody. As you
Mhm.
mentioned, the phone calls, reaching out via text or via Facebook. I send out homeversary cards, happy birthday
Mhm.
cards, texts, emails, um, and it's a Monday through Friday type of thing, right? You have to go to work because you're working for yourself. You're your worst critic when it comes to that. So when you start to slack off, things go away, right? When somebody doesn't hear from you after a while, they forget about you. This is one
Mhm.
of the things I try to remember to do is to always try to reach out. That is that is to me a Monday through Friday job.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you kind of touched on mind share, which I'm always talking to agents about. If you're not continually there, and I always kind of relate it to like Target or Starbucks. When you think about coffee, I think about Starbucks. When I think about shopping, I think about Target. You want to be the person that they think about, that your clients, contacts, and connections consider when they think about real estate. So staying top of mind is super important. So I know you came from a printing background and we were talking about postcards. I feel like, is this the main way that you prospect is postcards? And how many postcards do you send out like a month and a year?
On average, yeah, postcards. I've been doing that from the very beginning. I thought for me it was the easiest way to go out and start promoting myself into separate communities. Every time I had a sale of a new community, I created a postcard series for up to a year to see how the turnover was. There's a little formula calculation that I use to make sure that that community is marketable. If they're only
Right.
doing one or two sales in a year, it may not make sense to try to market that community because there are not a lot of sales happening. Um, so that has been key for me to just keep going. LAER, since we joined LAER, has this wonderful newsletter that they prepare every month. And I actually download that. I make a few personal touches on my end and I print it and I mail it every other month. And it has information. It's just another way of getting in front of somebody, right? There's
Hmm.
articles in there sometimes that that touch what the market is happening. And if you keep in touch with your clients or friends, no matter how things are happening, sometimes you can relate an article to what somebody's going through and then reach out to them and says, hey, I sent you that newsletter this month and that article on page 2 kind of really reminded me of you. Just a way to stay in touch.
I love that. That's really cool too. And I do love the monthly newsletter. I think it is an untapped resource. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. So can you share some, I know we talked about these things. Can you share some of your personal philosophies and mottos that you kind of keep in mind as you exist in the real estate world?
Philosophies and mottos. Well,
Hmm.
one of the things that I mentioned already is don't give up, right?
Yeah.
Never get, there's a movie, it's called Galaxy Quest. It's not a very, it's with Tim Allen and a few others.
From the 80s, Galaxy Quest from the 80s.
Yeah. And one of the models was never give up, never surrender, right? And that holds true to today. It is so easy today to give up because you feel like there's nothing happening,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
say, oh, well, I'm not going to do my prospecting today because I didn't get anything out of it yesterday. But then
Right.
that turns into tomorrow and then next week. And then all of a sudden, you're not talking to anybody. So for me, it's just never giving up, continue to reach out to people all the time.
I love that when I was reading your real estate bio, you mentioned the importance of treating everyone with respect. Of course, you mentioned staying in touch with your clients. I wanted to know, obviously, it's very easy to treat everybody with respect, but that can look different to everyone, and including setting boundaries with people. What does that look like for you?
Um, Many times we have challenging clients, right?
Right,
We also have challenging agents, uh,
right.
especially when there's that fear that, oh no, this deal is falling apart. I might lose my commission. That's where, from a lot of agents, things kind of ethics goes out the window. They don't continue the same way they began. Um, Respect can come in many different ways, right? Um, Working with somebody on the table, we have to remember this transaction is not about us. It's about our clients. So if a deal is falling through, you have to remember that it's not only you not getting a commission, it's also a buyer or a seller not moving forward on their home.
Hmm.
I had an instance last month where we had to cancel a transaction, and the seller was very upset because the buyer lost their job.
Oh,
And
no.
at first didn't want to release their escrow deposit. And my response to them was, while you're losing a deal, you still have a home. While
Right.
the
Oh,
buyer is
wow.
losing a deal, they're out of a home and out of a job and now out of X amount of money that you want to try to keep. That's again where respect sometimes gets lost. With other agents, I treat all agents with respect, everyone basically, until they no longer deserve it. And then I treat them with respect from a distance. Um, because I always feel that people are going to remember you for what you've done and how you've reacted. And when I look at some agents sometimes and they present an offer, and I've worked with them before, you kind of remember how that transaction went, right? Oh, this was a great person.
Mhm.
They did everything they needed to do, or they just did absolutely nothing. So, as you move forward in this industry, you want to make sure that people remember you for the good things you do and how hard you're willing to work to make sure that the transaction goes through.
I think my quote of the day now, wait, my quote of the week, maybe the quote of the month is treat them with respect from a distance. I love that. It's so applicable across the board in every field for every person. So that's awesome. So we're at the end now. Do you have anything else that you would love to share? Any other tips, any tricks, or a favorite book that you're reading right now that you'd like to share with us?
Um, One thing that I do notice that a lot of agents don't do is that they don't supply feedback when they go look at listings. And I don't, even agents in our office, unfortunately, are not supplying me with feedback on properties that they've seen after calling and texting and emailing, and you get nothing from them. Of course, they were very happy to show your property, but once they got that, they were no longer interested in getting back to you. And to me, it's important that, especially in a market like this,
Mm-hmm.
that we get some feedback on homes that we have for sale so that we can go back to the home sellers and says, look, these last few agents told us your house is overpriced based on others in the market. It kind of goes along with the reports that I've been sending you weekly showing you there's very little activity happening. Um, Again, agents remember those who treat them well and help them. And I think that feedback on listings should be just as important.
I very much agree. And to your point, especially in this market, right? When we have days on market is super long at this point. Listings are not moving. Um, and obviously the interest rate is what it is. It's very important. And it'll be helpful on everybody's side to be able to get feedback on a listing that
Right.
agents show. So I really like that. That's awesome.
I also want to share
Thank
one last thing before you go.
Yeah, please.
And one of the things that I've learned is that your reaction to the questions people ask you make a total difference. So I've
Hmm.
heard literally agents who've told people, well, hey, Farah, how's the market doing? And their response is, the market sucks. There's nothing happening. I haven't had a deal in 7 months, and the interest rates are too high. Home prices are higher. Blah blah blah. And that's such
Right.
the wrong attitude to portray. Yeah, you may not be
Hmm.
having a lot of deals, but do you really want to let that other person know that nothing's going on in your real estate career? You've just sent a
Hmm.
message that says, well, I'm definitely not calling you. Whereas I always tell people the real estate market is doing well. I'm doing well. I'm very busy. Even though sales have slowed down, it's still a good market to buy or sell. Remember, the question comes from interest, not only in the market, but a possible sale or purchase of a home. So if you've just fed that person with a bunch of negativity,
Hmm.
they're definitely not coming back to you.
Very, very poignant. And I think what happens a lot for agents is, especially newer agents who are not, because to your point, you dealt with a similar market, and so you were kind of tenured coming into this market. But agents who are not used to it kind of let their feelings show a little bit, and maybe won't catch that. So that was great for you to say thank you. That was a great tip.
Thank you.
I really appreciate. I love chatting with you in general. The first day I met you, I was like, he's got to be the first person to go on the main event because you're a great orator and you're just great to hear from. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you everyone for joining us. This has been a great event. I really appreciate everybody taking the time out today, and we're looking forward to seeing you next month with a new agent. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Thank you all. Have a good day.